O Blessed One, Shakya.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Anyone here for the first time? Special welcome to you. So, well, thank you for coming. And so tonight we're going to look at the chapter from here that is called Meaningful Objects. If you're following in this book, it's Meaningful Objects. So this raises the question, what is meaningful? You know, some people might think watching football is very meaningful. Other people might not. But there has to be something that is kind of naturally meaningful for anyone, for any living being. There has to be something that is naturally meaningful. So we'll get to that. And then we can consider how we can develop these meaningful objects for ourselves. So we begin with liberating prayer, as usual, and then we'll do a meditation. Liberating prayer is on a red card, which you find near you.
O Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar, and your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands I turn to you, supreme unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind, and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight. Through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you, may all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dharma
And so we can meditate. In meditation, it's good to have a good posture. So try to have a straight back. And try to place your feet firmly on the floor. You can place the back of your right hand in the palm of your left and raise the thumbs so the tips of your thumbs touch gently together. And then just relax your hands into your lap. For a few moments, just watch the rhythm of your own breathing. And we can do the meditation that is called black and white breathing. So the purpose of this meditation is to remove, with our own imagination, to remove all negative thoughts and feelings from our mind. And instead to fill our mind with positive thoughts and energy and confidence. So we can imagine that all your negative thoughts and feelings, all your difficult memories, feelings of irritation or anger, or sense of loss or disappointment, and jealousies, uncontrolled desires, anxiety about the future, all of these little pieces of negative mental energy, imagine they all turn into black smoke. Every last piece of negative mental energy that you carry with you in your own mind, it turns into black smoke. And all of this smoke gathers into a small cloud inside you at the level of your heart. And imagine you're seeing this cloud of thick, black, disgusting smoke. And you realize this is everything that's causing me to experience unhappiness and despondency and suffering. And it's everything that's obstructing me finding real happiness and peace and freedom from suffering. And so when you think about this cloud of thick black smoke, you desperately want to be free of it. And so every time you breathe out, you breathe away some of this black smoke. And as it leaves your body, it vanishes completely into empty space. And you realize that just by breathing out, you'll be able to free yourself from all this cloud of darkness. And then as you breathe in, imagine you're breathing in white light. This light comes from the blessings of all holy beings who have gone before you. and yet they remain just wishing for you to find your own peace and happiness. And so they pour down their good wishes for you in the form of these blessings, in the form of white light. So imagine you're being enveloped in white light and you breathe it in. And gradually it fills your whole body and mind, easing all your physical problems, filling your mind with positive energy and thoughts, inspiration and confidence. So just by breathing in this white light, your mind is becoming more positive and creative and conducive to finding peace and happiness. And so you're sitting in meditation, breathing away the darkness of your own negative thoughts and feelings. And you're filling your body and mind with this beautiful white light. So just take another 4 or 5 breaths to breathe away the last of any remaining black smoke and fill your whole body and mind with white light. So now you can feel as if you're completely free from all that negative mental energy. And your whole mind is just filled with positive thoughts and inspiration and confidence. Particularly confidence. With confidence you can feel that you can address the negativities that you carry around with you, the delusions, and you can become free of these delusions. So now you can begin to relax your concentration, and when you're ready you can arise from meditation. So the chapter is called Meaningful Objects, and it begins, any object that through our understanding of it gives us great meaning is a meaningful object. So what is great meaning? How would we recognize great meaning as opposed to small meaning? Well, at the moment we have what's called a human life. You're all human, right? You're not robots or aliens. You're all human beings. But being a human being gives us a great opportunity. Not only are we human beings, but we're quite fortunate human beings. Because we have all the physical and mental properties and attributes, and we've met Buddha's teachings. We live in a society where we can meet Buddha's teachings, we can practice Buddha's teachings, and we can support ourselves while we're doing it. And we can support our families while we're doing it. In many other societies, even though we were human beings, we couldn't do this. In some societies I'd be dragged off and carried off somewhere and end up in jail for many, many years. You might think that would be appropriate, but there'd just be somebody else come along behind me. So what is the meaning then that we have this precious human life? Maybe this great opportunity to be able to listen to, read, contemplate, meditate on Buddha's teachings. Buddha's teachings which are perfect instructions that can be taken as personal advice to free ourselves from suffering and its causes. And not only free ourselves from suffering and its causes, but be able to free other people in the same way. So, Buddha Shakyamuni, for example, who appeared in this world 2,500 years ago, he wasn't always an enlightened being. They didn't just drop out the sky as enlightened beings. At one time, they were just ordinary people like you and me. Or maybe you're not ordinary, I don't know. But just through the power of his own effort, he follows teachings and becomes this great enlightened being, and then gives teachings to other people so they can do the same. And from 2,500 years ago, these teachings have been passed down from generation to generation to the present day. Through the kindness of my own teachers, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso Rinpoche. So if it wasn't for the kindness of all this lineage of teachers, and ending up with my teacher, we wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. So we have this opportunity to do the same that they have done. The countless people who have gone before have followed these instructions, taken them as personal advice, freed themselves from the causes of suffering, and therefore from suffering, found lasting peace and happiness and joy, and given it to other people. What could be better than that? You don't have to give up your day job. You can still be a doctor, a dentist, a carpenter, joiner, bricklayer, whatever. It doesn't matter. What we're doing is changing our mind by taking these meaningful instructions, meaningful objects to heart. When it says object, it's mainly referring to mental objects. It's not, it's not your car, it's not particularly meaningful unless it can take you to Dharma teachings and so on. Apart from that, what use is your car? So, meaningful objects are objects, once you begin to understand them and take them to heart, is what's going to improve your life, free you from suffering, lead you towards enlightenment, and enable you to help others to do the same. I think I've told the story before about how I wrote to Venerable Geshe-la. I had some questions about Dharma in some of his books. And I added on a question about how I can best help my aged mother, who was 97 at the time. And he wrote back and he answered all the other questions, but he didn't answer that one. Until one day I was reading one of his texts called Joyful Path of Good Fortune. And I happened to glance down at a page, and it was the best way to help your aged mother or your aged parent is to get enlightened. So in other words, he's saying that getting enlightened is the most meaningful thing that we can do with our human life. So, any object that is conducive to that end must be a meaningful object. Meditating on a mind of love, for example, is a meaningful object. Meditating on a mind of compassion is a meaningful object. Meditating on a mind of renunciation is a meaningful object. So if we get to know what these minds are, we create a determination that I'm going to develop these minds. That determination is also a meaningful object that we create. It's just a statement about what we're going to do in the future. And so again, just making these statements, making these determinations, and carrying them out is making our life meaningful. So that determination itself becomes a meaningful object. So we can have all kinds of determinations. You know, I'm determined to go, I don't know, watch Liverpool play football, or watch Everton play football. You know, what benefit is either of those really going to do in the long run? A, it's not going to enable you to benefit other people. B, it probably just makes you unhappy. And C, you're going to spend a lot of money, which is has not got great meaning. You know, so many things we watch on television have not got much meaning because they're not enabling us, they're not leading us in a correct direction. It's so many of the things that we like and we spend energy and mental and resources and time on are just keeping us trapped in what we call samsara. We've heard this word before. It's like a cycle of uncontrolled rebirth, life after life. And it's uncontrolled because we have delusions in our mind. Our mind is contaminated by delusions. And we brought these imprints of delusions from a previous life, where we had anger, we had jealousy, we had desires, attachment, we had deluded doubt, and we had self-cherishing, a selfish mind. In particular, we had something called self-grasping ignorance, and a lack of wisdom, wisdom about how things really exist. Not so much about what exists, but about how things exist. And it's this self-grasping ignorance that causes us to have delusions. So we can think of these delusions, these negative qualities of mind, as like a tree, poisonous tree. And the fruit of these, the branches of this tree, actually it's the tree, the trunk of the tree is the self-grasping ignorance. The branches are the other delusions that arise from this self-grasping ignorance. And the fruits of this tree are suffering. And we can think about it in this way. We grasp it as self. We think, I really exist in the way in which I think about myself. And that applies to everything else that I see and think about. Everyone I know exists separately from me. They don't depend upon my mind in any way whatsoever. Everything I know exists in the same way. It doesn't depend on my mind in any way whatsoever. And all my mind is doing is getting to know these external objects and these external people who appear in my life. So I can control them. Yeah? So I can pick out the best ones and get rid of the unpleasant ones. The best ones for me. Yeah? And get rid of the ones I don't like. And then the others, most of the others, I don't need to bother about because they have no real impact upon me. You see how we generate from this single thought that I exist in the way I think about myself, and so does everybody else. And it's this mistaken view Because as we've seen many, many times, we don't really exist like that. You know, I got you to get a tattoo on your wrist, didn't I? The self you normally see doesn't exist. You can have a look at it. The self I normally see does not exist. Because if you were to try and point to yourself, you would point to many other things that are not yourself. Your chest, your shoulders, your head, your inner organs, none of these things is yourself. So self is just a concept, a mental construct, and nothing else. And that applies to everyone else as well. If you try to find someone else's self, you won't find them either. And so even though things appear to your mind, they don't really exist in the way you think they do. They exist merely as appearances to your own mind. And these appearances are part of your mind. So it's like you're making up your own drama day by day. And you're inviting actors to come into your drama. You're the writer, the producer, the director, and the main character in your own drama. Yeah. And this is going on day by day, and it's been like this since beginningless time. And it's a drama because the actions and the experiences we have arise from our delusions. The way we think about the world is contaminated because it's arising from our own delusions of anger, jealousy, uncontrolled desire, and so on. Let me read a little bit from here. All our problems, our unpleasant feelings come from our delusions of attachment and self-grasping ignorance. Therefore, these delusions are the main causes of our problems. We have strong attachment to the fulfillment of our own wishes, and because we think we grasp it as self, and we think this self is important. So we've strong attachment to the fulfillment of our own wishes, and for this aim we work very hard throughout our life, experiencing many difficulties and problems. When our wishes are not fulfilled, we experience unhappiness and depression, which often causes us to become angry, creating more problems for both ourselves and others. Is this familiar to you? Yes? No? It's just familiar to me then. We all experience this. If you just check on your life experiences, you see that, your problems are coming from the delusions that cause you to engage in inappropriate behavior, inappropriate actions. They're mistaken, because these delusions are just arising from mistaken views, mistaken conceptions, mistaken ideas about the world and ourself in it. So the meaningful objects, some of the meaningful objects, therefore, are our determination to overcome these delusions, and in particular to overcome the delusion of self-grasping ignorance, which is the root of this tree. If we cut away the root of the tree, then all the branches and the fruit will just fall away. We cut away the root of self-grasping ignorance, then the other delusions will they can't exist. And if the delusions don't exist, then they don't act as causes of suffering. So we don't experience the fruit of this poisonous tree. We don't experience suffering. So eventually we can become free. And it's that simple. It's that simple. What's difficult is just making the effort, making the determination and sticking to it. Because we have so many. These delusions are pretty sneaky. And our attachment is very strong. Our attachment to things and other people and the concept of ourself is very strong. And so, for example, due to strong attachment, I'm reading from page 86, due to strong attachment to our own views, we immediately experience the inner problem of unpleasant feelings when someone opposes them. You ever get into arguments? No. How does it feel when you get into an argument? You have to beat the other person down, right? You have to win. Because what happens if you don't win? You have these unpleasant feelings. And in the process, you're giving the other person unpleasant feelings. If someone has to win, then generally the other person has to lose. It would be much better if we could find win-win situations, which generally come from saying yes instead of no. You're right. I'm wrong. Can you ever say that? You're right and I'm wrong. Who? So this, when we have these unpleasant feelings, this causes us to become angry, which leads to arguments and conflicts with others. And this in turn gives rise to further problems, such as those arising from fighting and even war. Most political problems experienced throughout the world are caused by people with strong attachment to their own views. Many problems are also caused by people's attachment to their religious views. So in our past lives, maybe we didn't meet Buddhist teachings. So maybe we just carried on as if the way to find happiness is just to accumulate stuff, to try and fulfill our attachment to things and people. This is probably what we were doing before we met Buddhist teachings in this lifetime. No? No, maybe not. I can remember what life was like when I was a late teenager and early 20s. You're just trying to live a life of hedonism. Yeah. So if we look with wisdom in the mirror of our mind, we can see how our attachment, anger, and especially our self-grasping ignorance are the causes of all our problems and sufferings. We will definitely realize that unless we control these delusions, there is no other method to solve our human problems. So the meaningful objects that we're looking for are the essence of Buddhist teachings. Teachings on, for example, renunciation. Renunciation is a mind that wishes to become free of suffering and its causes, not just for one lifetime, but for all lifetimes. I think most of our problem arises because we think of ourselves mainly as a physical being who happens to have a mind. So when this physical body is finished with, we tend to think that's the end of me. But what happens to our mind? If we're thinking that our mind is just part of our physical nature, then it will be the end of me, if that's all there is. But the thing about mind is it's not physical. Our mind is not a physical thing. Our mind is not our brain. Our mind is like empty space, a continuum of thought. One thought leading to another, which leads to yet another, and so on. And it has no beginning. If you try and find the first moment of mind, you have to keep going back. Because every time you find the first moment, what you think is the first moment, you realize there must have been a moment before that. And so on. So you could search, but it will take you back to beginningless time. And also, therefore, if it's this continuum, it will go on until endless time. So, given the nature of our mind is like a beginningless and endless continuum of thought, in non-physical, has no shape or color or texture, but it functions to cognize and understand and know and remember things. That's what our mind's doing all the time. There's never a moment of our mind that does not have an object in it. So if we were, instead of thinking of ourselves as a physical being who happens to have a mind, if we were to think of ourselves as a mental being who happens to have a body, and then we can understand that our mind has been associated with other bodies in the past, and after this body is finished with, our mind will be associated with other bodies in the future. And we can begin to contemplate this and understand it, and it's much more realistic than just thinking, oh, I'm just a physical being who happens to have a mind. Because it's a mistake, because the implication is that our mind will be finished with when this body is finished with. But our mind does not come from our body. There's nothing about the nature of the creation of our physical body that is anything to do with the creation of our mind of this lifetime. You know, if we understand this notion of a continuum of thought, then the first moment of mind of this lifetime, at the moment of conception, must have been the last moment of mind of a previous life. And then the last moment of mind in this lifetime will be the cause of the first moment of mind in our next lifetime. So, if you understand that and you can work with it, then it leads you naturally to the realization that we have future lives. This is one life, but future lives will be many, because our mind is endless. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, what will be the quality of these future lives? What will it be like? It is very much dependent upon what we do in this lifetime. Now that we've met the causes of, begin to understand the causes of our suffering, and if we take steps to address the causes of our suffering, in particular this wisdom, realizing emptiness, that will overcome self-grasping ignorance, that will eventually overcome all our delusions, then we're pretty well guaranteeing that when, by the time of our death in this lifetime, by the end of this lifetime, we'll have reduced the extent of the contamination of our own mind. We'll reduce the delusions. We might even be completely free from delusions. And if we've reduced the delusions in our mind, we've got less anger, less uncontrolled desire, less jealousy, less deluded pride, and so on, then we're giving ourselves a much better opportunity to experience happiness and peace in next lifetime. And also, if we've taken these teachings to heart, we've created the cause to hear these teachings again. And so, again, we get a fortunate human life, be able to contemplate, study Buddhist teachings again, and so on, until we're completely free of all our delusions, and therefore all the causes of our suffering. So we're completely free from suffering. So it's like if you engage with these meaningful objects, training your mind in love and compassion and renunciation and wisdom, if we engage with these, we're creating the cause to become completely free of all suffering. It's like a beautiful gift you're giving to your future selves. Yeah? And so when your future self thinks about yourself of this life, they'll be thinking, good job. Thank you so much. Because if you hadn't done this, I'd be really miserable. I might even not be a human being at all. Yeah, and my body might be covered in fur or feathers or something, instead of just human skin. So it says on page 987, it says, usually we believe that solving the problems and sufferings of our present life is most important. We dedicate our whole life for this purpose. In reality, the duration of the problems and suffering of this life is very short. If we die tomorrow, our problems and suffering will end. Of this life will end. But then we'll have to experience the problems and sufferings of our next life. So we come, if we had a choice, if we were given the opportunity, we say, oh, you could have freedom from suffering in this lifetime. You can build up, nice wealth and nice, all kinds of nice stuff that will give you temporary peace and happiness and temporary solution to your problems and suffering in this lifetime. Or you can be free of suffering forevermore. But you have to put aside some of the things that you want in this lifetime. Instead, you've got to spend time doing meditation. And just sitting on a cushion, thinking about and getting in touch with your mind. Thinking about meaningful objects. So you have less time to watch TV. You have less time to go chasing after all these other things that you desire, going watching football and so on. So it's like a bargain, a trade-off. Use some of your time in this life to improve your mind, And the payoff is you eventually become free of any kind of suffering. So that's what the Buddhist bargain is. You know, use some of your time in this lifetime to really engage, to take Buddhist teaching as personal advice for daily living. And the payoff is you become free of problems and suffering forever. Not just for this lifetime, but forever. And the bonus prize is you get to help other people to do the same. Because you becoming free of suffering yourself, it's like you get yourself out of the swamp of samsara. You get onto the firm ground of liberation and freedom. And then you can guide other people out as well. You can show other people how you got out. And so it will apply to them too. If you've used the same meaningful objects that people have used for 2,500 years, you're pretty sure it's going to work for all your friends and relatives as well. Through continually meditating on emptiness, with the motivation of renunciation. The renunciation is this wish to become completely free of all future sufferings. So meditating on emptiness with this motivation, we will gradually abandon self-grasping ignorance. And we will attain a permanent cessation of all of our delusions. At the same time, we will attain a permanent cessation of all the sufferings of this life and countless future lives. And so we will have accomplished the real meaning of human life. We will have reached a state of nirvana. You know, other people will not realize you've reached this state. You still, for them, you'd still be appearing as your normal, ordinary self. But inside, your mind has changed in such a way that not only are you free of suffering, but your minds of love and compassion are just functioning all the time. So every person you meet, you don't think immediately, complete strangers, how are they going to affect me? They're going to be good to me? They're going to cause me problems? Or what? You know? Instead we're thinking, how can I help this person? You know, how can I help them deal with their problems? How can I bring them happiness? So we'll see in future Thursday evening classes how we're going to develop these minds, these powerful minds of love and compassion and wisdom. But also, coming up very soon, is it just after the Brazil Festival? We have 3 Saturday courses all together, week after week, on something called the 3 higher trainings. They're called higher trainings because they're motivated by renunciation, the wish to become completely free of suffering permanently. So the first week will be about Buddhist ethics. I hesitate to use the word moral discipline, but that's what it says in the book, moral discipline, but I'm just saying it's Buddhist ethics. It's essentially what it is. The second week will be concentration, and the third week is wisdom. So these are the three higher trainings: moral discipline, higher moral discipline, higher concentration, and higher wisdom. So that's coming up in early November. Yeah, must be about the the 9th, 16th and 23rd of November. Cool. So you just have to be there. You dare not miss this opportunity if you want to be free of suffering. The practice of the three higher trainings, and again they're called higher because they're motivated by renunciation. The practice of the three higher trainings is the scientific method to attain the permanent cessation of suffering and its cause, self-grasping ignorance. This can be understood by the following analogy. When we cut a tree using a saw, the saw alone cannot cut the tree without the use of our hands, which in turn depend upon our body. Training in higher moral discipline is like our body. Training in higher concentration is like our hands, and training in higher wisdom is like the saw. By using these three together, we can cut the poisonous tree of our self-grasping ignorance. And automatically all other delusions, its branches, and all our sufferings and problems, its fruits, will cease completely. Then we will have attained the permanent cessation of the sufferings of this life and countless future lives. We will have solved all our human problems and accomplished the real meaning of human life. And so we'll meditate. So this chapter on meaningful objects is leading us to develop a mind of renunciation. The wish is to be free of suffering and enjoy only peace, not just for one lifetime, but for all future lifetimes. Remembering that after our death, our mind goes on into its next life, and then the life after that, and so on and so forth. So this chapter on meaningful objects is leading us to this mind of renunciation, this wish to be completely free of all suffering and its causes in all our future lives. And the way to accomplish this is to engage in the practice of the three higher trainings. They're called higher trainings because they are motivated by this mind of renunciation. We're not renouncing our families or our jobs, our enjoyments. We're renouncing the sufferings of our future lives. The three higher trainings of higher moral discipline, higher concentration, and higher wisdom. So the meaningful objects are the objects arising from Buddha's teachings within these three higher trainings that enable us to accomplish the real meaning of this precious human life that we have right now. And so we can meditate on the determination and develop the realization of renunciation. To come to strongly wish for freedom from the sufferings of all our future lives. And to accomplish this, I will engage with the meaningful objects of the three higher trainings: higher moral discipline, higher concentration, and higher wisdom. So focus your mind single-pointedly on this determination to develop the mind of renunciation and engage with the three higher trainings, the scientific method that takes you out of suffering. Hold that determination single-pointedly from your own heart. Make this determination very strong for the last 2 minutes. And feel as if you're giving yourself, your future self, an extraordinary gift of freedom and happiness. So now you can begin to relax your concentration. And when you're ready, you can arise from meditation. So, we practice in meditation by focusing our mind on one object. And so we become more and more familiar with that object. But also when we can practice when we're out of meditation. And that's very important too. Because the better we practice when we're out of meditation, the easier our meditation becomes. The easier our meditation becomes, the better our practice when we're out of meditation. So when, in the coming week, for example, I would ask you to think about two things. Do I really believe in future lives? Do I really believe that I will have future lives? And then the other question is, do I believe in past lives? And the thing is, most people believe in past lives. You know, we all remember when we were princes and kings and great politicians and princesses and so on. So, if we believe in past lives, the life we're having now must be a future life of one of those past lives. Yeah. If you could think of, then in some time before this lifetime, you had another life. So, if you're back in that life, the life you're having now must be a future life of that one you were having before. So then you realize that you had a future life. And so you can ask yourself, well, what would be my future life? What would be the future life of this one? And you understand that you begin to think more. How is it possible for me to have a life in the past and then to have this one? What's the connection between the two? Was it just something magic that goes on? But the connection is our mind, our mental continuum. And you know from your experience how one thought leads to another. You know, particularly when you sit down to meditate and you want to think just about one thought, but you have a whole sequence of thoughts. But this is happening all the time, and it never stops. Well, your body comes from them. But there's a sperm from your father and an egg from your mother, and they come together. Yeah, bit of biology, yeah. And then, you grow from that. So no, your mind is in this moment. Who knows? It largely depends upon what your mind is like at the time of death. It's not you going back in time. You're only going forward. Yeah, you just have to think about it. I mean, the thing is, we can't see our future lives because they don't exist yet. But ask yourself this: would there be a difference between how you would react, how you would chart out your life, the things you would want to occur in this lifetime, if there was a difference between thinking there's only this lifetime, or I might have some future lifetimes? I'm not certain, I can't see them. But what if they're there? So this is why we need faith. So Buddha is telling us you have future lives. So the issue is, do we believe it and do we act upon it? And what I'm saying is there are many good reasons for thinking we have future lives. And also, I think if you ask yourself, well, if there is future lives, how would I act? What choices would I make in this lifetime if I really thought there were future lives? In the same way, we kind of prepare, we want to prepare for our retirement. It'd be much better to think about preparing for future lives, because retirement may never come. Future lives may start tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. I think I've given you enough to think about until next week. Thank you so much.